You know the drill, right? We wake up, we study, we work, we worry. We're always trying to become something, and we think this is life. But what if it's not? We're about to dive into one single realization that, well, it might just change the way you see everything.
So let me ask you this. What if I told you that all that constant pressure you're feeling, the one to become something, to achieve, to prove yourself?
And what about that exhaustion, the worry that you carry around like this heavy backpack every single day? What if I told you that whole struggle might not even be your life? Yeah, just let that sink in for a second.
So where does this all come from? Well, you see, from the moment we're born, it's like we're handed a script, a rule book for how life is supposed to go.
And this script, it's super clear, isn't it? Get good marks. Why? So you can get a good job. Then earn money, make the family proud. And the big ones, don't fail, and whatever you do, don't be different. We absorb all these rules without even thinking about it. And before we know it, we're living a life that was designed by other people, not by us. So you gotta ask yourself, and be honest here. All this running around, this constant pressure to succeed, was that really your choice? Or are you just following a path that was laid out for you? See, that's why so many of us feel so tired all the time. It's not because life itself is hard. It's because the life you might be living might not even belong to you. And that right there, that brings us to the real heart of the issue. It's this subtle illusion, kind of like a trick our own mind plays on us, that creates so much of our unhappiness. The spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle really hit the nail on the head with this. He says that a huge amount of our unhappiness isn't from our actual situation, but from the story our mind tells us about it. It's this unhappy narrative that the mind calls me and my life. And it's amazing how our own language actually creates this problem. Think about it. When we say, I have a life, what are we really saying? It implies possession. It creates this split. There's me, and then there's this other thing, my life. And of course, anything you possess, you can lose, so it leads to fear. But watch what happens when we just change one little word. Instead of I have a life, what if we say, I am life? Instantly, there's no separation. There's oneness. And if there's nothing to possess, there's nothing to lose. The fear just vanishes. Okay, so if we're all living inside a story, where in the world does this story come from? Let's break that down. Well, there's actually a term for it. Narrative identity. And here's the key. It's not who you truly are. It's the story your mind builds about who you are. It's based on how it interprets your past, your job, your thoughts, the whole shebang. And it labels this whole story me. It feels incredibly real, right? But it's ultimately just a mental construction. And we pull from all sorts of places to build this story. We use our interpretation of the past, our social roles, like our job, our possessions, like our house or our car. We even use our body, how we think it compares to other people's. But here's something really crucial to understand. This identity can be built on negative things too. Things like grievances or a sense of victimhood can create a story that's just as powerful, just as defining as a story of success. In the end, it's all just part of the narrative. But here's the cool part. Once you can actually see that your identity is just a story, you are right on the edge of a really powerful and honestly liberating realization. And here it is. This is the big one. You don't have a life. Seriously. That whole idea that you possess a life, that is the illusion we've been talking about. You are life. You're completely inseparable from the energy, the consciousness that's flowing through you right this very second. There isn't a you and a life. There's just life, and you're it. Just think about what that really means for a second. If you are life, then you can't lose it, can you? The entire foundation for all that fear, the fear of losing your life, your identity, your precious story, it just dissolves. Because you can't lose what you fundamentally are. So, what does this actually mean in the real world, like day to day? How does this huge shift in perspective actually change anything for us? Well, the moment you really truly get this, things start to shift. That immense pressure you feel, it just gets lighter. You stop running around trying to please everyone. You stop comparing your story to everyone else's story. You finally become free from the narrative. And for the very first time, you actually start living. Because at the end of the day, life isn't about achieving success inside the story. It's not about getting more money or a fancier job title. It's about waking up. It's about awareness, realizing that you are the very life in which that whole story is just happening. And when you become aware of that, that's when you become free. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Now that you know that you are not your story, what part of that story, what little piece of that heavy narrative are you going to decide to just put down today?